Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favorite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful, with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders drop, maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Willowbrook Hall was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every guest playing their role in the weekend's high society performance. Then Sir Reginald Hawthorne was found dead in the drawing room, slumped in his favourite armchair, the silver teapot still steaming on the low table beside him. The poison had been hidden in the teapot, released with the first pour of hot water into the waiting cups. Police saw a tragic accident, perhaps even a suicide by a man known to suffer private torments. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The grand drawing-room of Willowbrook Hall still hummed with the lingering echoes of the previous evening's entertainment. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly overhead, catching the pale afternoon light filtering through tall velvet curtains. The air was thick with the sweet scent of hothouse lilies and expensive Chanel perfume, mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee that had been served earlier. Polished mahogany tables gleamed under careful layers of furniture wax, while soft kid gloves and crisp linen napkins lay discarded on side tables, as silent witnesses to the drama that had unfolded. Sir Reginald Hawthorne sat slumped forward in his high-backed armchair, one hand still clutching a delicate china teacup. His face held a frozen expression of surprise, lips slightly parted, as if interrupted mid-sentence. The ornate silver teapot, an Art Deco masterpiece with sleek lines and geometric patterns, rested innocently on the low table beside him. A faint trace of bitter almond lingered in the air, almost masked by the wood smoke drifting from the fireplace. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 3 times, its deep tones resonating through the warm drawing-room like a final curtain call. The cast of characters had already assembled, each striking their opening pose with varying degrees of conviction. Lady Victoria Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's elegant wife, stood near the marble mantelpiece in a flowing silk evening gown that whispered with every small movement. She dabbed at her eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief, her shoulders shaking in what appeared to be perfect grief. Major Thomas Blake, her burly brother-in-law, paced near the French windows in his rough tweed jacket, the faint smell of Cuban cigar smoke still clinging to the fabric. His face was set in a rigid mask of military composure. Miss Evelyn Hawthorne, the couple's only daughter, sat curled on the velvet settee, twisting a soft kid glove nervously in her lap. Her eyes were wide with apparent shock, yet something in her posture suggested a carefully rehearsed fragility. Mr. Philip Grant, Sir Reginald's private secretary, hovered by the fireplace, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from his impeccably tailored sleeve, and Dr. Arthur Langley, the family physician, knelt beside the body, his expression one of professional concern, the subtle sandalwood cologne he favoured drifting faintly in the air. Observe, mon ami, this suspect plays their role too perfectly. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Hercule Poirot stepped into the room with the quiet authority of a director entering his theatre. He had arrived from London that very afternoon, summoned by an urgent telegram. The chill night air from the terrace still clung to his coat as he paused, tilting his egg-shaped head slightly to survey the entire stage. His small hands made an expressive gesture as he took in every detail. The position of the teapot, the arrangement of the cups, the way the light fell across the dead man's face. "The stage is set," Poirot murmured to himself. "And the actors, they have taken their places, but who among them has forgotten their lines?" He approached Lady Victoria first. The performance. She wept, yes. The handkerchief dabbed at the eyes with appropriate delicacy. The shoulders shook in measured rhythm. The tell, but observe, the handkerchief remained perfectly dry. Not a single tear had fallen to stain the fine linen. The mascara stayed pristine, untouched by genuine sorrow. The performance of grief, it was technically flawless, too flawless. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a man performed shock so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was momentarily deceived. He had rehearsed in front of mirrors for days, practicing the widening of eyes, the sudden dropping of the jaw, the exact tone of a broken voice. Yet he made one fatal error. When the news was delivered, he reached for his cigarette case with hands that were far too steady. A man truly shocked does not possess such controlled movements. The body, it knows the truth even when the face tells the most elegant lies. This is what the little grey cells understand, the psychology beneath the performance. The truth. Therefore, this woman knew of the death before she was told. Her grief is mere costume, not feeling. You see it now, non? The theatre crumbles before our eyes. Major Blake cleared his throat loudly, drawing himself up in his tweed jacket. "Terrible business," he muttered, his voice booming across the room like an actor projecting to the back row. Yet Poirot noticed how his eyes flicked toward the teapot for just a fraction too long. Miss Evelyn's hands trembled as she spoke in a soft voice about her father's habit of taking tea at precisely 4 o'clock every afternoon. Mr. Grant nodded helpfully, recounting the exact sequence in which the cups had been poured. Dr. Langley confirmed the symptoms: rapid collapse, the bitter taste noted on the lips, the unmistakable signs of cyanide. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble? Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes when speaking of the tea ritual? The mask slips, did you catch it? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth as silk. The fire crackled warmly, sending sparks dancing up the chimney. Outside, rain began to patter gently against the tall windows, adding its own melancholy rhythm to the scene. The scent of fresh lilies grew almost cloying in the enclosed space, mixing with the faint metallic tang that still hung near the body. Poirot arranged 3 small ornaments on a side table into perfect symmetry, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. He could feel the tension building already, like the hush before the first act truly begins. Every actor in this drama had a secret. Every secret wore its own carefully crafted mask. The performance had begun. The players had assumed their roles with varying skill. But in the theatre of crime, no performance lasts forever. The little inconsistencies were already appearing. The dry handkerchief, the too steady hands, the eyes that refused to meet one another. Chapter 2. Enter the players. The library of Willowbrook Hall became the next stage, its walls lined with leather-bound books that smelled of aged paper and furniture wax. A warm light from the green-shaded lamps bathed the room, while the grandfather clock in the hall continued its steady ticking, like a metronome for the unfolding drama. Outside, rain continued to patter softly against the tall windows, and the faint scent of wood smoke drifted in from the drawing-room fireplace. Poirot arranged the suspects in a careful semicircle, directing the first formal interviews as intimate theatrical scenes. He tilted his egg-shaped head, observing each actor with sharp green eyes. The air carried lingering traces of sandalwood cologne, Cuban cigar smoke, and the rich aroma of fresh coffee that had been brought in on a silver tray. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, "we shall now hear each of you perform your version of events. The stage is yours." Lady Victoria Hawthorne spoke first, seated gracefully in a high-backed chair, her silk gown rustling with every delicate gesture. She claimed she had personally carried the silver teapot from the kitchen to the drawing-room at 4 o'clock, as was her custom. Her voice trembled at exactly the right moments, her fingers twisting a crisp linen napkin in her lap. Yet her eyes, Poirot noted, remained dry and calculating. "Observe, mon ami. This suspect plays their role too perfectly. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" Major Thomas Blake followed, standing stiffly in his rough tweed jacket, the faint smell of his cigar still clinging to the fabric. He insisted he had been smoking on the cold terrace the entire time, overlooking the windows but hearing nothing unusual. His military bearing was impeccable, chest puffed with practiced confidence. However, his hands clenched and unclenched too rhythmically, like a man repeating rehearsed lines. "The mask slips. Did you catch it? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth." Miss Evelyn Hawthorne sat curled on the edge of a velvet chaise, her soft kid gloves now discarded beside her. She described the tea ritual in a soft, fragile voice. How her father always took the first cup. How she had been reading nearby when the cry came. Her wide eyes filled with apparent tears, yet they never quite spilled. Poirot noticed how her gaze darted toward Mr. Grant whenever she mentioned the teapot. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble? Ask yourself, why did she avoid his eyes when speaking of the exact moment the tea was poured? Mr. Philip Grant, the private secretary, performed next with efficient helpfulness. He recounted the precise order of the cups being filled. Sir Reginald first, then Lady Victoria, then the others. His voice was steady, his posture helpful and cooperative, as he smoothed his sleeve repeatedly. But the small beads of sweat on his forehead betrayed the strain beneath the polished performance. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Dr. Arthur Langley, the family physician, delivered his lines with professional detachment. He described the symptoms in clinical detail: the sudden collapse, the bitter almond scent, the rapid failure of the heart. His sandalwood cologne mixed with the hot coffee steaming nearby as he gestured with steady hands. Yet something in his calm felt rehearsed, like an actor who had studied the part of concerned doctor many times before. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot moved between them like a director giving notes, his small hands making expressive gestures. He arranged a set of crystal paperweights on the desk into perfect symmetry while listening. The fire in the library grate crackled warmly, casting flickering shadows across the velvet curtains and polished mahogany shelves. Contradictions appeared as missed cues in their carefully prepared scripts. Lady Victoria claimed the teapot was already on the tray when she entered the drawing-room. Yet Mr. Grant distinctly remembered seeing her carry it from the kitchen herself. Major Blake swore he had remained on the terrace the entire time, but Miss Evelyn mentioned hearing heavy footsteps inside the house moments before the cry. "Bravo!" but the performance, it was not convincing. Each suspect's role was now firmly established on this stage. Lady Victoria played the devoted yet grieving widow with elegant poise. Major Blake performed the loyal, bluff military brother-in-law. Miss Evelyn embodied the innocent, sheltered daughter. Mr. Grant enacted the efficient, loyal secretary. Dr. Langley wore the mask of the trusted family physician. The performance for each had been delivered, but the tells were multiplying. Dry eyes where tears should flow. Steady hands where shock should tremble. Glances exchanged too quickly, avoided too deliberately. Poirot drew himself up to his full height, though still small, and surveyed his cast. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Every actor had taken their mark. The first masks had been carefully adjusted. But who among them played truth, and who performed the most dangerous lies? The players had entered, but who performed truth, and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. The investigation moved deeper into the shadowed corners of Willowbrook Hall as the afternoon light faded into a soft grey dusk. Poirot directed his cast toward the private studies and the upstairs bedrooms, where the true backstage of the drama lay hidden. The air carried the rich scent of polished mahogany and fading hothouse lilies, mingled with the faint bitterness of medicine from Dr. Langley's black bag left open on a side table. Outside, as rain continued its steady rhythm against the windows, while inside the fire crackled warmly in every grate. Poirot began with a thorough search of Sir Reginald's study. Crisp linen papers lay scattered across the desk, their edges sharp under his small, precise fingers. He arranged the documents into neat symmetrical piles, his green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The faint aroma of Cuban cigar smoke still clung to the heavy velvet curtains. "Observe closely, mon ami," Poirot murmured. "We are now in the first act. The performances grow longer, the masks heavier." A mask slipped during the deeper questioning of Miss Evelyn in her private sitting room. The young woman sat on a silk-upholstered chaise, her hands twisting a soft kid glove, and when Poirot gently pressed her about the heated argument she had with her father that morning concerning her engagement to Mr. Grant, her voice cracked, not with sorrow, but with sharp, unfiltered resentment. For one unguarded moment, the innocent daughter role fell away, revealing cold determination beneath. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Lady Victoria's grief performance was tested next in the warm drawing room. She repeated her story of carrying the teapot, yet her hands trembled when Poirot mentioned the changed will. Major Blake's military composure strained as questions arose about his substantial gambling debts. Mr. Grant's helpful secretary mask showed small fractures when confronted about secret meetings with Miss Evelyn. Dr. Langley maintained his professional calm, but his sandalwood cologne seemed stronger, as if masking something deeper. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble? Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes when the will is mentioned? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon." The director method, Miss Evelyn Hawthorne. The performance, she spoke of her father with appropriate softness. Her eyes widened in practiced sorrow. The shoulders curved inward, the very picture of a grieving daughter. The tell, but observe, the voice cracked with resentment, not pain. The glove twisted too tightly, too angrily. A truly mourning daughter does not reveal fury so quickly when the inheritance is discussed. The psychology. I am reminded of the case of Madame Dupont in Paris. and who performed the role of the devoted niece so convincingly after her aunt's sudden death by poisoned wine. For weeks she had rehearsed in front of her dressing mirror, perfecting the trembling lip, the delicate fainting spells, the exact tone of tearful gratitude at the reading of the will. She wore black silk and delicate lace, dabbing at dry eyes with embroidered handkerchiefs. Even I, Hercule Poirot, admired the technical brilliance of her performance. Yet she made one fatal error. When the notary mentioned the large bequest, her fingers reached for the champagne glass with steady, almost triumphant grace. A truly grieving relative does not celebrate with such controlled hands. The body betrays what the face conceals. This is the psychology of performance. The little grey cells see what others miss. The truth. Therefore, this young woman knew her father's death would free her to marry. Her sorrow is costume, not feeling. You see it now, no? The theatre begins to crumble. The first revelation hung heavy in the air like the scent of wilting lilies. Miss Evelyn's mask had cracked, exposing the ambitious young woman beneath the fragile daughter performance. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, making an expressive gesture with his small hands as he considered the new information. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Bravo! But the performance, it was not entirely convincing. Deeper connections began emerging. The changed will, the forbidden romance, the financial pressures on Major Blake, all threads in this intricate theatrical web. The silver teapot, now carefully sealed, sat like a silent prop at the center of the stage. Reflection. In this first act of our drama, Miss Evelyn's fractured performance reveals how humans wear masks to survive uncomfortable truths. We play the loving daughter while resenting control. We perform grief while feeling secret relief. The psychology is ancient. Fear of judgment forces us to rehearse roles until they feel like skin. Yet the mask is never perfect. A trembling voice, an angry twist of fabric, a glance too sharp. These small slips betray the actor within. We all wear masks. Society demands them. The perfect wife, the loyal soldier, the dutiful child. But beneath the silk and tweed, raw emotions simmer. Greed dressed as sorrow. Love twisted into obsession. Hatred performing as loyalty. The body knows the truth, even when the face lies beautifully. And the universal truth about deception is that every performance has its limit. The spotlight of truth grows hotter with each scene, forcing even the most skilled actor to forget their lines. The careful observer, and you are becoming one, mon ami, will notice these cracks and know that truth does not rehearse. The first act concluded, the first mask cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The warm drawing room of Willowbrook Hall grew heavier with tension as evening approached. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft golden glow over polished mahogany and deep velvet curtains. The scent of hothouse lilies mixed with strong continental coffee, and the lingering trace of Cuban cigar smoke. Rain drummed steadily against the tall windows, while the grandfather clock chimed the quarter hour like a warning. Poirot decided it was time to pressure his cast. He gathered them once more, directing each suspect to replay their movements from the fatal afternoon. "We shall test these alibis as scripts," he announced, adjusting his moustache with precision. "Truth needs no rehearsal. Lies, however, always stumble eventually." Lady Victoria's performance began to strain first. Seated in her silk gown, she repeated how she had carried the silver teapot herself. Her voice held its elegant tremble, but her fingers twisted the crisp linen handkerchief so tightly the fabric creaked. When Poirot asked why the maid saw her return from the kitchen twice, her shoulders stiffened unnaturally. "Observe, mon ami. This suspect plays their role too perfectly. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" A Major Thomas Blake paced the room in his rough tweed jacket, the faint smell of sandalwood and smoke following him. He insisted he had never left the cold terrace. Yet when Poirot pressed him about the gambling debts Sir Reginald planned to expose, his military voice faltered. His hands clenched into fists, the knuckles whitening against the soft kid gloves he still wore. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. Ask yourself, why does this man avoid looking at the teapot even now? Miss Evelyn sat beside Mr. Philip Grant on the velvet settee. She tried to maintain her innocent daughter role, but her wide eyes darted nervously when Poirot revealed the changed will that disinherited her unless she ended the engagement. Her voice cracked again, this time with visible fear rather than sorrow. Mr. Grant reached to comfort her, his helpful secretary mask slipping as he smoothed his sleeve repeatedly. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble? Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play?" Dr. Arthur Langley maintained his professional calm longest. He described the poison symptoms with clinical detachment, the bitter almond scent still faintly recalled. But when Poirot asked why his medical bag had been left open near the kitchen passage, a bead of sweat appeared on his forehead. His steady hands, once so convincing, now betrayed small tremors. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Bravo! But the performance, it was not convincing. Poirot moved among them like a director tightening the screws on a difficult scene, and he arranged the crystal glasses on the side table into perfect symmetry, his green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The fire crackled warmly, sending wood smoke curling toward the ceiling, while the chill from the terrace windows crept into the room. Lady Victoria's grief began to crack further. She admitted under pressure that her husband had discovered her secret correspondence. Her shoulders no longer shook with practiced sobs, but with genuine agitation. The dry handkerchief lay forgotten in her lap. Major Blake's Loyal Friend Act crumbled when confronted with a witness who saw him inside the house near the kitchen at the critical time. His face flushed red against the rough texture of his tweed collar. "This is outrageous," he boomed. But the line sounded hollow, even to himself. A Miss Evelyn and Mr. Grant's secret romance now stood fully exposed. Their performed innocence gave way to desperate honesty. She confessed the argument with her father had been violent. He admitted tampering with the tea tray to remove a letter that could ruin them both. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice these small fractures. Dr. Langley's mask of the concerned physician held longest, but even he faltered when Poirot mentioned a large financial investment that depended on Sir Reginald's death. His sandalwood cologne seemed suddenly overpowering, as though trying to mask the scent of fear. Rehearsed lines began colliding. Alibis contradicted each other like badly written dialogue. Glances once hidden now flew openly between the suspects, and the elegant stage of Willowbrook Hall felt smaller, the velvet curtains heavier, the air thicker with the weight of unravelling performances. Poirot drew himself up to his full height and surveyed the room. His small hands made an expressive gesture as he tilted his egg-shaped head. The hot coffee grew cold in the cups. The distant piano music from the upstairs gallery had fallen silent. The actors were tiring. Their carefully prepared scripts no longer flowed naturally. Small truths slipped through the cracks in their masks. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. The cold terrace of Willowbrook Hall had become a stark stage under the pale moonlight. Chill night air bit through silk gowns and rough tweed jackets, carrying the sharp scent of rain-soaked stone and fading hothouse lilies from inside. A distant piano played softly, its notes drifting like forgotten music from a previous act. The grandfather clock inside chimed 10, each strike echoing across the marble floor, visible through the French windows. Poirot gathered the entire cast on the terrace for the major confrontation. Crystal lanterns flickered, casting long shadows across polished mahogany furniture brought out from the drawing room. The silver teapot, now safely sealed, sat on a small table like a silent accusation. The tension in the air was thick enough to taste, bitter, like the poison that had ended Sir Reginald's life. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, drawing himself up to his full modest height. "The performances have grown tiresome. It is time for the masks to fall." He turned first to Lady Victoria. Her silk evening gown rustled as she clutched the velvet shawl tighter around her shoulders. She repeated her rehearsed lines about devotion and grief, but her voice wavered. Poirot pressed harder, revealing letters found in the fireplace ashes that proved her husband planned to divorce her and cut her from the will. "The mask slips. Did you catch it? Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" Lady Victoria's shoulders began to shake, but this time the movement was raw, uncontrolled. The crisp linen handkerchief fell from her fingers onto the cold marble. Real tears, hot and angry, spilled down her cheeks, streaking the carefully applied mascara. "I hated him," she cried, her voice breaking completely. "For years I played the perfect wife, while he destroyed everything I loved. The affair, the threats, the control, I wanted him gone." You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's hands tremble? The emotional breakdown had arrived. Real feeling emerged at last. The director method, Lady Victoria Hawthorne, the performance. She had played the grieving widow with elegance. The dainty dabs of the handkerchief, the trembling voice, the elegant collapse into chairs, all technically flawless. The tell, but observe, when the truth surfaced, the tears were real and ugly. No more perfect posture. The mask had not simply slipped, it had shattered. The psychology. I am reminded of the case of Mrs. Carrington in Surrey, who performed devoted widowhood after her husband's death by poisoned champagne. For months she rehearsed her sorrow in private, studying actresses on the London stage. She wore black silk, spoke in hushed tones and arranged flowers with perfect melancholy. Even experienced detectives were convinced. Yet, in one private moment, when she thought no one watched, she smiled while touching her new pearls. A truly grieving woman does not smile at jewelry. The body always reveals what the face hides. This is the psychology of performance. The little grey cells see the difference between costume and soul. The truth. Therefore, Lady Victoria's hatred was real. Her grief was only a costume she wore until the spotlight grew too bright. You see it now, no? The theatre crumbles when real emotion breaks through. Major Blake stepped forward, his rough tweed jacket damp from the chill air, His military mask cracked as he admitted knowing about the affair, but staying silent for money. Miss Evelyn wept openly beside Mr. Grant, her innocent daughter role abandoned as she confessed her relief at her father's death. Mr. Grant's helpful secretary act dissolved into desperate love. But the true leading performer had not yet broken. Poirot turned slowly toward Dr. Arthur Langley. The physician stood rigid, his sandalwood cologne mixing with the cold terrace air. His face remained professionally calm, but his steady hands, once his greatest strength, now betrayed him. "The concerned doctor," Poirot said softly, "so helpful, so quick to confirm the poison, so ready with medical explanations. Yet it was you who had the easiest access to cyanide, non? A doctor's back is a dangerous prop." Dr. Langley's mask held for one final moment. Then it fell completely. His shoulders slumped. The professional detachment vanished. Real terror flooded his eyes, not for the crime, but for the exposure. "He was ruining us all," he burst out, voice hoarse. "The investments, the threats to expose my past mistake. I only meant to make him ill, to gain time. The dose was wrong. It was never supposed to kill." The emotional breakdown was total. No more rehearsed lines, no more calm physician. Only a desperate, sweating man standing in the chill night air, his hands finely trembling as they should have done from the beginning. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The tension had reached its peak. Someone had broken character at last. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully as the cast stood frozen around him. The distant piano had stopped. Only the sound of rain and ragged breathing remained. The spotlight of truth had shone directly on the performers. Some masks had merely slipped. One had fallen completely. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. The library of Willowbrook Hall felt smaller now, its velvet curtains drawn tightly against the night. The fire crackled with fresh logs, sending warm wood smoke curling upward to mix with the rich scent of strong continental coffee and fading hothouse lilies. Polished mahogany shelves gleamed under the green-shaded lamps, while the grandfather clock ticked steadily, marking time in this backstage revelation. As Poirot had moved the cast into this quieter space to lift the final layers of performance. No more public acting, only the raw truths hidden behind the elegant stage of Willowbrook Hall. The air grew thick with the smell of leather bindings, furniture wax, and the faint bitterness of secrets finally exposed. Dr. Arthur Langley sat slumped in a leather armchair, his once confident physician's mask completely gone. He confessed that Sir Reginald had discovered his secret financial scheme, a failed investment in which the doctor had used client funds, including Sir Reginald's own. The threat of exposure and ruin had been the true poison behind the teapot. Observe, mon ami, behind every curtain, a secret waits. Lady Victoria's hands trembled as she revealed her long-hidden affair with Major Blake. What had seemed like mere flirtation was in fact years of resentment and passion. Sir Reginald had planned to expose them both in the new will, stripping Victoria of everything and ruining Blake's military reputation. Their performed loyalty had been a carefully rehearsed duet. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Miss Evelyn and Mr. Philip Grant sat close together, their secret romance now fully illuminated. Sir Reginald had forbidden the match, and threatened to disinherit Evelyn entirely. Grant admitted he had helped prepare the poison tea tray, not knowing the full dose, desperate to secure their future together. Their innocent young lover's performance had hidden cold calculation. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how these connections twist like hidden wires beneath the stage. Our Major Blake, no longer bluff and military, confessed he had supplied the cyanide from an old army contact. His gambling debts had grown monstrous. Sir Reginald's discovery had pushed him toward desperate action. The loyal brother-in-law role had masked deep hatred and financial greed. The backstage of relationships now lay completely bare. Every elegant gesture from the weekend had hidden knives. Every warm smile in the drawing room had covered cold motive. The silver teapot had simply been the final prop in a drama written long before the fatal tea. Consider the psychology. What role does this person need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? The tension that once filled the room had transformed into heavy silence. Poirot arranged a set of crystal paperweights into perfect symmetry on the desk, in his small hands moving with deliberate calm. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as the final threads connected. The chill from the terrace windows crept in, cooling the warm fire's glow. Reflection behind every curtain in this theatre of crime, a secret has now been revealed. Humans do not wear masks only for others, we wear them for ourselves. We perform loyalty while nursing hatred. We play the grieving widow while feeling secret relief. We act the helpful friend while counting money in our minds. The psychology of hidden motives is simple yet devastating. Fear, greed, and twisted love force us to build elaborate stages where truth cannot reach. We all have backstage areas we guard fiercely. Society applauds the polished performance, the perfect marriage, the loyal family, and the trusted professional. But behind the velvet curtain, resentment festers and plans take shape. A kind word in public becomes poison in private. A steady hand pouring tea hides the tremor of murder. The body tries to rehearse, but guilt always leaves traces. The too quick glance, the unnecessary explanation, the smile that arrives a second too late. I recall the famous case aboard the luxury liner Queen of the Adriatic, where passengers performed elegant society while hiding a shared conspiracy. One woman played the devoted wife so perfectly that she arranged her husband's funeral flowers with artistic grace. Yet when she thought herself alone, she counted the insurance papers with fingers that never shook. A truly heartbroken widow does not calculate profit so smoothly, as the little grey cells understood what the eyes refused to see. Every motive wears its costume, but the performance always cracks under sustained light. The universal truth is that no secret remains forever backstage. The longer the rehearsal, the more painful the final exposure. Truth does not need curtains or spotlights. It simply waits for the moment when the actor forgets their line. We approach the end of this drama. Have you seen how every hidden motive shaped the performance? The careful observer, and you are becoming one, mon ami, now understands that behind every curtain, a secret waits. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The drawing room of Willowbrook Hall had been transformed into the grand final stage. All the lights of the crystal chandelier burned brightly, casting golden reflections across polished mahogany and deep velvet curtains. The air carried the mingled scents of hothouse lilies, strong continental coffee, and the faint lingering trace of sandalwood cologne. A fire crackled warmly in the grate, while outside the rain had softened to a gentle patter against the tall windows. The silver teapot, sealed and innocent-looking, rested on a side table like the central prop of the entire drama. The entire cast had been assembled. Lady Victoria sat in her silk gown, her face pale and stripped of its earlier elegance. Major Thomas Blake stood rigid in rough tweed, hands clasped tightly. Miss Evelyn and Mr. Philip Grant sat close together on the velvet settee, their secret now open. Dr. Arthur Langley occupied the chair nearest the fireplace, his physician's confidence completely gone. But Poirot stood before them like the director calling the final curtain. He drew himself up to his full modest height, touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, and made a small expressive gesture with his hands. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he surveyed every face. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, "you have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we?" He turned first to Lady Victoria. "Lady Victoria, you played the grieving widow with such elegance. The delicate dabs with the handkerchief, the trembling shoulders, the soft voice. Magnifique. But the grief, it was costume. Your handkerchief remained dry. Not one genuine tear fell until the mask was forced away on the terrace. You knew of the death before anyone told you. Your hatred for your husband's control and the planned divorce was the true motive wearing the mask of sorrow." Lady Victoria lowered her eyes, the last fragments of her performance dissolving. Poirot moved to Major Blake. "Major Blake, you performed the loyal military friend and brother-in-law so convincingly. The bluff voice, the rigid posture in your tweed jacket. But loyalty does not lie about being on the terrace the entire time. Witnesses saw you inside near the kitchen. Loyalty does not supply poison to silence threats over gambling debts. Your performance of the honest soldier cracked when the debts were exposed." The Major's face flushed, his hands clenching at his sides. Next came Miss Evelyn and Mr. Grant. "Miss Evelyn, your role was the innocent, sheltered daughter. Wide eyes, fragile voice, the perfect picture of shock. Yet innocent daughters do not argue violently with their father over a forbidden engagement, nor hide letters that prove motive. Mr. Grant, you played the helpful, efficient secretary so well, always smoothing your sleeve, always ready with details. Yet helpful men do not tamper with the tea tray to remove dangerous letters. Your secret romance was the motive dressed as youthful love." Both young people looked down, their hands clasped tightly together. Poirot paused, letting the silence build like the hush before the final line. The fire crackled, the chandelier tinkled softly, the scent of lilies grew almost cloying. And so we come to our leading performer. He turned slowly toward Dr. Arthur Langley. "Dr. Langley, you gave the most convincing performance of all. The concerned family physician, with the calm professional voice describing symptoms, the quick confirmation of poison, the helpful cooperation. Magnifique, so steady, so reliable, but you made one fatal error. One small moment when the mask slipped completely. When you first approached the body, before anyone had mentioned poison, you reached for the silver teapot with perfectly steady hands. A man who discovers sudden death by unknown means does not handle the suspected weapon so calmly. A doctor who sees cyanide symptoms for the first time trembles. Your hands did not, because you already knew exactly what was inside that teapot. You placed the poison there yourself, hoping to silence Sir Reginald before he exposed your financial crimes and past medical mistake. The dose was meant to incapacitate, but it killed. Your performance of the shock doctor was technically perfect, until that one steady hand betrayed you. Dr. Langley's face drained of colour. His shoulders slumped. The final mask fell away, revealing raw terror and defeat. Poirot's voice grew softer, yet filled the entire room. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth, she takes her bow. He stepped back, small hands gesturing toward the assembled cast. Each of you wore a mask. Greed performed as grief. Resentment performed as loyalty. Love performed as innocence. Fear performed as professional calm. But in the theatre of crime, no actor escapes forever. The little inconsistencies, the dry handkerchief, the steady hands, the missed cues, they all pointed to the truth. A Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre. The room fell into complete silence, except for the crackling fire and the soft rain on the windows. No one moved. The spotlight of truth had shone on every face, stripping away every role. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The drawing-room of Willowbrook Hall felt strangely quiet after the final revelation. The crystal chandelier still glowed warmly overhead, its tinkling prisms catching the light like fading applause. The fire crackled softly in the grate, sending gentle wood smoke drifting toward the velvet curtains. The scent of hothouse lilies had begun to fade, mixing with the rich aroma of fresh coffee that a maid had brought in on a silver tray. Outside, the rain had eased into a soft drizzle, tapping gently against the tall windows. Police had arrived promptly after Poirot's theatrical unmasking. 2 uniformed officers stood near the French windows, their boots leaving faint damp marks on the polished parquet floor. Dr. Arthur Langley was led away in handcuffs, his once confident posture now broken. He no longer wore the mask of the professional physician. His shoulders slumped, his face pale and defeated under the bright lights. No applause for this performance, only justice. Lady Victoria sat motionless in her silk gown, the crisp linen handkerchief forgotten in her lap. The elegant grieving widow role had been stripped away completely. What remained was a tired woman whose eyes showed a mixture of relief and shame. She stared at the empty armchair where her husband had died, as if seeing the scene for the first time without the filter of performance. "You knew, didn't you?" she whispered to no one in particular. Her voice lacked its earlier rehearsed tremble. It was raw, honest, and small. The chill night air from the slightly open terrace door brushed against her bare arms, raising faint gooseflesh. Major Thomas Blake stood near the fireplace, his rough tweed jacket suddenly looking too large for him. The military bluffness had vanished. He rubbed his hands together slowly, the rough texture of the fabric whispering against his skin. His gambling debts and secret involvement with Lady Victoria were now public knowledge. The loyal brother-in-law mask had been torn off, leaving only a man facing the consequences of his resentment and weakness. "I never wanted him dead," he muttered, though the line sounded hollow even to himself. "Just quiet." "Observe, mon ami, the curtain call has come. Watch how each actor reacts when the lights stay on and the audience does not clap." Miss Evelyn Hawthorne and Mr. Philip Grant sat close together on the velvet settee. Their hands were clasped openly now, no longer hidden in fear of Sir Reginald's disapproval. Evelyn's face, once carefully arranged in fragile innocence, showed genuine exhaustion mixed with cautious hope. The soft kid gloves she had twisted earlier lay discarded beside her. Grant's sleeve-smoothing habit had stopped, He looked at her with real tenderness. The helpful secretary performance replaced by simple, unguarded love. "We can finally live without hiding," Evelyn said quietly, her voice steady for the first time that day, and the warm firelight played across her face, softening the shadows that had lingered there. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the masks have fallen away. The true faces emerge slowly, like actors stepping into daylight after a long show." Poirot moved among them with quiet authority. He adjusted a few crystal glasses on the side table into perfect symmetry, his small hands moving with deliberate calm. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he observed the transformations. The hot coffee steamed gently in delicate cups, its rich, continental aroma filling the room and offering a small comfort after the storm. Dr. Langley's departure had left a heavy silence. The man who had performed calm professionalism so convincingly now faced a very different stage, a courtroom where no elegant lines or steady hands would save him. A justice had begun its slow, methodical walk. Statements were taken, evidence carefully logged, the silver teapot carried away as the central exhibit. Lady Victoria rose slowly, her silk gown whispering against the cold marble floor. She looked older, stripped of the performance that had sustained her. "I played the perfect wife for so many years," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now I must learn to live without the script." Major Blake nodded once, sharply, as if acknowledging an order. His face showed the strain of a man whose military bearing had been his longest-running role. The debts would be paid, the secrets aired. The theatre of his life had changed forever. Miss Evelyn leaned her head briefly against Grant's shoulder. Their forbidden romance, once hidden backstage, could now step into the light, and the innocent daughter and loyal secretary masks had been replaced by two young people facing an uncertain but honest future. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, making a small, expressive gesture. "The curtain call has come," he murmured. "No more rehearsed lines, no more carefully adjusted masks. Only the real actors remain on this stage." The police completed their initial work with quiet efficiency. Footsteps on the parquet echoed as officers moved about, doors closing softly behind them. The grandfather clock chimed 11, its deep tones marking the true end of the performance. The elegant country house, once the perfect setting for a weekend of high society theatre, now felt emptier. The cast had been stripped of their roles. Greed, hatred, fear, and twisted love had all been exposed under the bright lights of truth. Lady Victoria turned toward Poirot. "Thank you," she said simply. There was no dramatic flourish, no rehearsed gratitude, just quiet acknowledgement. Major Blake offered a stiff nod. Evelyn and Grant managed small, genuine smiles. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. His green eyes held quiet wisdom as he looked at each of them in turn. The theatre of crime had emptied of its false players. The drama was over. Justice had taken its bow. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show. The morning light filtered gently through the tall windows of Willowbrook Hall, softening the edges of the grand drawing-room. The crystal chandelier hung dark and silent now, its earlier brilliance replaced by pale sunlight. Fresh hothouse lilies had been placed in the vases, their sweet scent mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee brewing in the kitchen. The fire had been allowed to die down to glowing embers, leaving a faint trace of wood smoke in the warm air. crisp linen napkins lay folded neatly on the sideboard, and the polished mahogany tables gleamed once more under careful dusting. The theatre had emptied. The dramatic weekend had ended, and with it, the performances that had sustained the household for so long. Lady Victoria Hawthorne stood on the terrace, wrapped in a soft wool shawl against the chill morning air. Her silk evening gown had been replaced by a simple day dress. The elegant grieving widow mask was gone. In its place stood a woman facing an uncertain but free future, as she had already made arrangements to sell Willowbrook Hall. The weight of years spent playing the perfect wife had lifted. Her eyes, no longer dry and calculating, held a quiet resolve, mixed with lingering regret. "I spent so many years rehearsing the role he wrote for me," she said softly to Poirot, who had joined her outside. "Now the stage is mine alone. I think I shall travel, perhaps to the south of France, where no one expects a performance." Poirot nodded, touching his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "The role of widow no longer suits you, madame. It is good to step off the stage when the curtain has fallen." Major Thomas Blake had left early that morning. His rough tweed jacket and military bearing had carried him away to face his debts and the consequences of his involvement, and the loyal brother-in-law role had been stripped away completely. In its place, a simpler man would have to rebuild. He had spoken briefly of selling his own property and living more quietly. The bluff confidence was gone. What remained was honest accountability, however painful. Watch this transformation carefully, mon ami. The actor steps out of costume. The real person learns to walk without the script. Miss Evelyn Hawthorne and Mr. Philip Grant walked together in the garden paths, their hands openly clasped. The soft kid gloves and tailored sleeves no longer hid their affection. The innocent daughter and helpful secretary masks had dissolved. In their place stood two young people free to love without fear of disapproval or disinheritance. Evelyn's face, once carefully arranged in fragile sorrow, now showed genuine hope and quiet joy. Grant walked taller, his constant sleeve-smoothing habit forgotten. "We will marry quietly," Evelyn told Poirot when they returned to the house. "No grand performance, just a simple ceremony and a new life away from this place." Grant nodded, his voice steady and warm. "The theatre here is over. We want only truth between us now." "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how love no longer needs to hide backstage? The true roles emerge when the spotlight dims." Inside the drawing room, Poirot moved slowly among the familiar props. He arranged a few crystal glasses into perfect symmetry on the low table where the fatal teapot had once rested. The silver teapot itself had been taken away as evidence, leaving an empty space that felt strangely final. The velvet curtains had been drawn back fully, allowing the morning light to flood the room and chase away the shadows of the previous days. The transformations were clear and profound. Willowbrook Hall itself seemed to breathe easier. The elegant country house, once the perfect stage for deception and high society drama, was returning to peaceful silence. The heavy atmosphere of rehearsed lines and hidden motives had lifted. Fresh flowers, polished wood, and the gentle sounds of servants moving about replaced the tension that had filled every corner. Consider the psychology of these changes. When masks fall, people often discover who they truly are beneath the performance. Fear no longer forces them to play roles they hate. Greed loses its costume of grief. Love steps forward without needing to pretend indifference. The body relaxes, the voice finds its natural tone, and the eyes meet others without calculation. Lady Victoria joined the young couple inside. For the first time, she looked at her daughter with genuine warmth rather than performed concern. "I was wrong to support your father's control," she admitted quietly. "I played my own part too long. Perhaps we can all learn to live without scripts now." Evelyn smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "We can try, Mother." Poirot observed them all with quiet satisfaction. His green eyes gleamed as he tilted his egg-shaped head. The small hands made a gentle expressive gesture. The drama had reshaped each life in different ways. Some would carry scars from the roles they had played. Others would find freedom in shedding them. The setting itself had transformed. The crime scene, once heavy with poison and lies, it had become a quiet house preparing for new beginnings. The terrace where masks had finally fallen now caught the soft morning light. The library, where secrets had spilled out, stood orderly and calm. Once more, if you were hiding behind a mask for years, how would you feel when it finally dropped? Would relief come first, or fear of the empty stage? The careful observer, and you are one now, mon ami, sees that truth, though painful, brings its own peace. The last trunks were being carried downstairs. Footsteps on the parquet echoed with a lighter rhythm. Doors closed softly, not with the heavy finality of the previous night, but with the gentle sound of departure. Willowbrook Hall would soon stand empty for a time, its grand rooms waiting for new players, or perhaps none at all. The lessons of the weekend, however, it would travel with each person who had performed here. The theatre of crime had completed its run. The actors had removed their costumes and stepped into daylight. Some would stumble at first without the familiar lines, others would walk straighter, breathing freely for the first time in years. Poirot stood at the front door as the cars prepared to leave. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and gave a small nod of farewell to each transformed face. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. In the quiet comfort of his London apartment, Hercule Poirot sat in his favourite armchair beside the small table. A steaming cup of tisane released its delicate herbal scent, mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee prepared by his housekeeper. The room was warm and orderly, a polished mahogany furniture gleaming under soft lamplight. Velvet curtains framed the tall windows, where gentle rain tapped softly against the glass. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed softly, its steady rhythm a comforting backdrop to his reflections. Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision, then smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he reviewed the completed drama at Willowbrook Hall. News of the characters' fates had reached him that morning. Lady Victoria had sold the estate and departed for the south of France, seeking a life without the heavy script of the perfect wife. Major Thomas Blake faced his debts and possible charges with uncharacteristic honesty, his military mask abandoned for simpler accountability. Miss Evelyn and Mr. Philip Grant had married in a small private ceremony, their love no longer hidden backstage. Dr. Arthur Langley awaited trial, his physician's role forever stripped away in the cold light of justice. The theatre had emptied. The final curtain had fallen. Yet Poirot's mind lingered on the human drama he had directed toward truth. Why do people perform rather than reveal truth? Because the world writes demanding scripts for us all. Society applauds the devoted wife, the loyal friend, the dutiful daughter, the trusted professional. We rehearse these roles until the lines feel like our own skin. Greed dresses itself as grief. Hatred performs as loyalty. Fear appears as calm confidence. Love twists into obsession and hides behind indifference. We wear masks because naked truth feels too dangerous, too vulnerable, under the spotlight of judgment. In the case of Willowbrook Hall, each actor had chosen their part out of necessity. Lady Victoria performed devotion while resentment festered. Major Blake played the bluff soldier while gambling debts and secret passion consumed him. Miss Evelyn wore the mask of innocent daughter while plotting freedoms through marriage. Mr. Grant acted the efficient secretary while tampering with fate. Dr. Langley maintained the calm physician while poison waited in his bag. Every performance was born from fear, greed, or twisted love. Yet none could sustain the act forever. The masks society demands are heavy indeed. A woman must smile through control and humiliation. A man must stand tall while weakness eats at his honor. Young lovers must hide their hearts to protect their futures. We perform to survive, it to be accepted, to avoid the terror of exposure. But the body rebels against the lie. The hand trembles when it should stay steady. The eye avoids contact when it should meet honestly. The voice cracks when it should flow smoothly. Guilt always betrays the actor, no matter how brilliantly rehearsed. I am reminded of the Styles case many years ago, where a clever woman performed perfect mourning after her husband's death by strychnine. She wore black silk with artistic melancholy, arranged flowers with graceful sorrow, and spoke in hushed tones that moved even hardened detectives. She had studied her role for weeks in front of mirrors, timing every sob, every delicate feint. Her performance was so convincing that she nearly deceived Hercule Poirot himself. Yet one small moment revealed everything. When she thought herself alone, she reached for the insurance documents with fingers that were perfectly steady, almost triumphant. A truly grieving widow does not handle papers of profit with such calm precision. The body knows the truth even when the face lies with elegance. The little grey cells understand this psychology of revelation. The performance may be flawless, but the soul leaves traces that cannot be rehearsed away. The psychology of revelation is inevitable and beautiful in its simplicity. Truth does not rehearse. It stumbles, hesitates, and cracks under pressure. When the spotlight grows too hot, even the most skilled actor forgets their lines. The dry handkerchief, the steady hand reaching for the teapot, the voice that cracks with real anger instead of sorrow. These are the moments when the mask falls and the true face emerges. In every theatre of crime, the final act belongs to truth because order and method demand it. Lies may flow smoothly for a time, but they cannot withstand sustained observation. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because human nature cannot sustain the lie indefinitely. The little inconsistencies accumulate. The body grows tired of pretending. The heart longs to speak without script. We may wear masks out of pride, out of fear, out of love twisted into obsession, but eventually the weight becomes unbearable. The actor longs to step off the stage and breathe freely. In Willowbrook Hall, the poison hidden in the teapot was merely the physical weapon. The real poison was the years of performed lives that finally demanded release. Poirot took a slow sip of his tisane, the warm liquid comforting against the chill of memory. He arranged the small objects on his table into perfect symmetry. The cup, the saucer, the silver spoon. Order and method. These were his guiding principles in every drama. The psychology of the mask teaches us humility. We're all performers in some theatre, whether we admit it or not. The question is not whether we wear masks, but how long we can sustain the performance before truth forces the curtain to fall. Some actors break early. Others hold until the final act. But in the end, every player forgets their lines when the spotlight of justice shines directly upon them. In this case, the transformations were profound. Lady Victoria discovered freedom in shedding the role of controlled wife. Major Blake faced himself without the bluff of military honour. The young lovers stepped into honest daylight, and Dr. Langley confronted the consequences of his calculated calm. The elegant country house itself returned to peace, no longer burdened by hidden motives and rehearsed grief. The theatre of crime has one unchanging truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. The body betrays what the face conceals. The heart grows weary of pretending. Truth does not need velvet curtains or crystal chandeliers. It simply waits patiently for the moment when the performance crumbles. Poirot leaned back in his chair, his green eyes soft with wisdom. The rain continued its gentle rhythm against the windows, a soothing accompaniment to his thoughts. He touched his magnificent moustache once more, and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always,